market, if the pharmaceutical industry specifically is nationalized, how does the state set prices effectively?
And I mean, there it is, dude. Like the concept is so foreign to people. This guy, Cam, good mustache, glasses, Cam over here, is concerned about like how the state will know what, like how expensive should the state make insulin, you know? How expensive, like, can and so there's like a paradigm being established here that, like, I mean, Bunny Malumbo and Eddie here, I mean, you're so like in the moment of it, of like engaging with the ideas. You could say, there's like a consultation moment where it's like, how do you even answer this ridiculous question, right? And you kind of have to unravel all these things. We'll take a look to see what they say. But I think it's pretty interesting and telling, man, that like, you nationalize healthcare, and the first thing you're wondering is like, how does the state know to set prices for healthcare effectively? Yeah, man. There's this shows a great lacking of priorities, in my opinion. It all means well, right? These people mean well. It's just that there's a severe perspective problem here, in my opinion.
Before you get into that point, did you want to say something?
Yes, please.
There you go.
I was gonna add, I guess like I lived in China for 8 years and 10 years in the US, so I have like the divide between the two. I guess in China, generally speaking, it's really safe, and there's a lot more equality in certain areas. In terms of like support from the government, it is easier to get healthcare, 100%, and also I think certain societies use communism well, and it can be used well to create, I guess, more equality. I think capitalism ultimately creates inequality.
So one thing I was gonna say, you have to be careful.
Great argument from Bunny. Not a whole lot to add here. She's very, very good at keeping it simple, not going too in the weeds. And again, this is what makes the communist argument so strong, is that you literally just ask people about their experiences from China, for example, and they're like, yeah, it's safer, more equality, etc., etc. Excuse me. And it's kind of hard to straight up be like, yeah, dude, your lived experience is illegitimate, right? And also how much the periphery really hates imperialism and capitalism from the Western world, and how much they have a bad taste in their mouth, understandably, from that, which also reinforces that. So yeah, not a lot to add, just good stuff.
There's an old saying, we went out of the fire into the frying pan. The question is, under what system do you not get the guys at the top becoming super wealthy? Because Stalin and Mao Zedong, these people become Chavez. Okay, Castro, this man is no angel. The question becomes, which one dampens our greed in a way that benefit the most people?
Yeah, I don't even think it should be that. It should just be which system is more effective at distributing resources and helping people have good outcomes.
And China has abolished poverty, and we have rampant poverty.
China hasn't abolished
yes,
poverty.
Yes, they have, according to the World Bank.
There's 300,000 homeless people.
There are 300,000 homeless people in China, and there are over 1 billion people. So 300,000 homeless people in China. What is that? Let's see here, right? Like if 1% of China's population, if they were only at 1 billion people, which they're not, they're above 1 billion. If they were only at 1 billion people and they had 1%, that would be 1 million, right? Because 10 million would be 10%. No, it would be 10. It would be 10 million would be 1%, which means 1 million would be 0.1%, which means there are 0.05% of Chinese people are homeless. That's the fucking statistical relation, right? But since there are so many fucking people in China, you can be like, there are 400, hundreds of thousands of homeless people in China, right? Dude, like they eliminated poverty. They have been lifting other nations around the world, and they did this all on their own terms. A communist party run state. Sure, they brought in foreign investment, but they also had to. They had no choice. Capitalism had dominated global markets to the point where the USSR collapsed in quotation marks. China has no choice but to adapt to the material conditions of the modern age and try to make a deal with capitalists, right? Basically, long story short, it's like, okay, like you can make money, but you're going to deal with our standards. And ever since then, it's been like the Communist Party running the show and letting capitalists kind of like play for now. I know with all those reforms, they like the rhetoric in China back during the Deng Xiaoping reforms in past 2000 and stuff, when they started allowing billionaires in the party, unfortunately, there was like this rhetoric change about how they were no longer going towards socialism, but developing the thing that's going towards socialism or something like that. You know, you can have all kinds of problems, especially if you're a Marxist and you're a leftist, you know, about how China's handling this stuff. But I mean, how do you, you know, yet another statistical, you know, yet another perception problem, yet another way to just misunderstand what's going on here. So.
More
in
people,
China.
though, in ratio.
He said they
Google-
abolished poverty.
They did
There's
Google it. The
300,000
World
homeless
Bank wrote a
people.
full article on it.
National
They have
Center of
abolished
Biotechnology
relative
Information.
poverty.
When China was pure communistic, 45 million people starved to death eating bark and dirt and leaves. And it's hard to know, is it doing better, all the things you like? Are you sure that's from the communist side, the Mao Zedong side?
I would argue
Or is that
it's
from the capitalist
definitely-
side?
I would argue it's definitely the free
Yeah.
market side.
Yeah.
I also just want to push back on one thing real fast.
Yeah, again, here it is. I mean, Ty Lopez has this level of stupidity that's extremely difficult to break down. He also throw in the racism where they're eating bark, dirt, and leaves, right? Bunny gives the nice little nod. You know, I wonder if she thought the same thing, like, oh, nice little racism thrown in there. You know, these fucking backwards communists, they're fucking eating dirt and leaves and shit, right? As if, like, Palestinian children who are doing that right now aren't directly doing that because of capitalist influence, right? Yet another way, yet another perspective problem, yet another way where you can just easily disprove how ridiculous this argument is. And it's so funny where, yet again, right? Anytime China does something good, it's capitalism. Anytime China does something bad, it's communism. And there it is, right? Where they say, yeah, that's the free market developing China. Except it's not the fucking free market, is it? Because if we had that exact same system in America, which we don't, it's way less strenuous, way less regulation, and they still complain that America isn't a real free market. That's not a free fucking market. That's a state-controlled market, bro. That's a fucking communist country, bro. Like, you're literally just telling on yourself. You're saying that, like, the Communist Party making these market reforms was a good thing for, like, dude, it's you can't argue with these people, man. They're just, it's a whole world. It's a whole perception problem. There's such bullshit that it's like, how do you sit there and unravel all this? How do you, you know, the debates are so not good. They're not a good way of, like, getting a points crossed. It just becomes like this dick measuring contest. And yeah, it's just nothing but disingenuous arguments back to back to back, you know. It's frustrating.
Are we still going to stick with the China thing? Because
Well, I just wanna
there's
say
so many
it's-
great points
Yeah.
here.
We need a
that, like, we need
prompter over
to,
here.
we
I
need
know.
to focus, you know
It
what I mean?
just, it's crazy to me to hear somebody say China's safer, though, and, like, you can literally be disappeared from the streets. Like, even your celebrities, famous tennis players,
The
famous
FBI.
people, they are,
Shout out Julian Assange. though.
yeah,
Yep, again, just like the wall thing with Ty Lopez, where, you know, and this, it's so funny, man. Like, Americans are so clueless, dude. Saying stuff, people dismiss, like, police brutalities, like the casual genocide of, like, slaughtering Latin Americans and Black Americans, right? That's totally fine, right? You know, the FBI, yeah, the FBI is basically the American Gestapo. But, like, our media and the movies and television makes it seem like they're these epic heroes when they're actively trying to overthrow, like, countries, you know, subversively. Yeah, Julia Assange, right? I mean, whistleblowers in general. You know, they're saying it's not safe in China, whereas, like, America, you know, you talk to, like, Hannah and her crazy ass eyes right here, and she would admit that, like, all these different cities are dangerous. You know, of course, the racist undertones will always be there as well. But, you know, you have to admit in America that there's, like, rampant fucking inequality. Skid Row, Niagara Falls, America, all parts of, so many parts of New York, Chicago, LA, Skid Row, including in LA. I mean, the list goes on. Like, the experience of Black Americans, like, in the South generally and just across America generally, experience of women, you could go on and on and on. I mean, it's just, you know, there's, like, a level of they don't even realize they're saying stupid bullshit, and it's kind of wild.
shout out Julian
had to,
Assange, but we are not
King.
incarcerating Julian Assange right now. We are trying to extradite him here for trial, which I'm opposed to.
We're doing our best.
I'm
And he's been
opposed
sitting in
to,
Belmarsh
and
for
I've
the
spoken
last
out with, I
month.
actually work with his brother on the campaign to get him freed. But what I'm saying is, we don't have political prisoners in the U.S. We don't. Who are they?
And there it is. I think that's, like, the most white woman thing I've ever heard in America. We don't have political prisoners in America. We don't. Who are they? Who are they? And it's just, I mean, Malumbo, you know, I mean, Eddie knows too. I'm sure Bunny knows as well. But Malumbo being a Black American specific dude, it's like, dude, they slaughtered black revolutionary leaders, like in the night. They drugged Fred Hampton. They had his bodyguard as a rat. They like drugged him while he was on the conversation with his phone. He was on a phone conversation with his mom. Excuse me. Words. And they fucking infiltrated his house and like killed a bunch of Panthers. And that was just Fred Hampton. The reason you don't know who these political prisoners are is because they're on a black site somewhere you've never fucking heard of. Hannah and yeah, there's just a level of like white privilege and ignorance that you kind of just have to be like, you don't know anything, you know, and just tell people that. And I know it's like rude and unfair and unjust, and I know in a context like this you can't really do that because you have to deal with this whole like engagement, the whole episode, right? But at some point you just have to be like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Because that's the truth, right? You can go there and argue with statistics back and forth, right? But if they continually engage in bad faith arguments, you're not getting to the root problem, are you, right? You're just kind of dealing with all these symptoms of the problem. When tackling it head on is like the real deal here. It's like an arrogance, a privilege, an ignorance, an entitlement that's so systemic to the whole problem. And you can see that just tonally, emotionally through this entire conversation. So obvious.